Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Mike Dano. I'm filling in for Mike Shanklin on Liberty Movement Radio, Voluntary Virtues. Mike Shanklin can't make it tonight. He's taking a well-deserved time off. We're going to be discussing some very interesting topics tonight. Um, One will be discussed by James Cox on how to get your own island. Another topic is football player rape case brought up by Anonymous, and Anarchy Never Been Tried by Robert Kruger, and Rally in D.C. and the U.S. default debacle. So any listeners wish to call in and comment, number is 512-539-0606. So please feel free to call in with any questions and comments. So tonight, I'd like to start off with talking about how to get your own island. So James, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. For people that know me, my name is James Cox with peacefreedomprosperity.com. And you can also check out my YouTube channel, James Cox, on YouTube. Everyone's a critic. It's EVRY. One's a critic. Anyway, so this island idea, an Australian couple, Tracy and Jim Johnson, back in 2003, what they did was they bought their own island in the Fiji's, I hope I'm saying this right, Mamana Kulka chain. What they did was they paid just over $2 million for Wajigi Island, which they own, and they operate a 5-star resort on the island. And now, owning an island, obviously, especially out the middle of an ocean, there are some drawbacks. And one of their drawbacks that they found is that they'd be paid, they pay as much as $21 per kilo for snow peas, which back in Australia they could buy for a few dollars per kilo. And of course, there's the occasional cyclone that comes whistling through, causing problems. But other than that, there may be a few more glitches to owning an island out in the middle of an ocean. The couple are very happy living on this 3 acres of land out in the middle of nowhere. And what they apparently do is they rent a 3-bedroom luxury property to customers, among which one of them, believe it or not, is the hotel heiress, Paris Hilton, who pays upwards of $2,459 per night to get the private island experience. So the thing why I wanted to bring this out is maybe if enough people could pool some money and get some money together and buy an island out in some water somewhere, or even seasteading. That's been brought up also. I know some guys from the United States bought some land as well off of Canada. They bought it off Craigslist. It cost them $100,000. 9 friends pooled money and bought this. And apparently what they had to do first was they had to set up a corporation in the United States, and they combined all their assets in order to pay cash for this. And they had to get a Canadian attorney because that was required to register the deed. So the reason why I bring this up is I'm offering this up for discussion for us to talk about, see what everybody's thoughts are on this. So I want to throw this over to Jesse. What are your thoughts about owning an island somewhere, and creating our own little place where it can be we can live free.
Paradise.
Yeah, paradise. Yeah.
Yeah. Call it what it would be. And I mean, honestly, I love the idea. I really do. I don't like the idea of having to pay somebody else for an island that they don't own just because their country says that it's theirs. But at the same time, it's a great idea. It really is. It would be I really think that it would be something that would be beneficial for a lot of different people. I mean, it would give us all sorts of, especially if it's off of Costa Rica, it'd give us great opportunities for being able to put together things like, future space programs, that type of stuff that people have been working on but aren't really able to do much of or as much as they'd like to do in the United States. And then, of course, there's also the medical research, the various types of things that I'm personally interested in, which would be nerve regrowth type stuff. Unfortunately, that's not something that's allowed in the United States because of the moral outrage. But yeah, that would be awesome. I would definitely love to be on board with something like that.
Yeah, the thing is as well, and I'm going to go over to Danu and the other people here. The other thing as well would be that with the way that people are growing things now, aquaponics and stuff like that, that would be a way that food source could be provided, and also food forests and stuff like that. Go ahead. Well, do you want to talk about it? Sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Alicia,
Okay.
and I could easily feed an army. One of the things that I have been doing here in city of St. Louis is urban homesteading, and I had a system that worked beautifully until I came across. Well, I basically butted heads with some ridiculous regulations. If you go like 2 houses down into Maplewood in my subdivision, you can have up to 8 hens, but in the city of St. Louis, you can only have 4 hens. Um, and my garden was too large to be able to fertilize with only 4 hens. So for 2 years, I had 8 to 10, and I was doing great. I had way overabundance, but then I got busted, and so I had to cut my flock in half for no particular reason.
What did they do? How did they bust you? What happened? Did they come around and give you a chance to get rid of some of the hens first?
Yeah, they did. I sold them, and they were good quality. I made some cash. The problem is the garden suffered all this year, where I was just from my because I had sold to people in my neighborhood. It pretty much covered the gas cost, even with the rising price of gas, and my kitchen was full. I was growing like 90% of what I consumed. So I didn't have to worry about food or fuel. That was that was taken care of just by excess production in my own yard. Having to go down to only 4 hens, chickens are very quiet, so they ended up being attacked in the middle of the night. I couldn't hear them. I ended up losing almost all of them to raccoons or possums, and I didn't have enough fertilizer, so the garden just failed this year miserably. It's ridiculous how I had a great system set up, and then because of the most arbitrary of rules, literally 2 houses down, across a status border, I would have been fine.
So
even in a house that had less land.
Give us an idea. Give us an idea of because I try now. I mean, yeah, it's bad what they did to you, and more people need to be doing this, right? But well, it's not. I mean, it's an infringement of you trying to take care of yourself. But what I want to try and do here is I want to try and focus on the positive things. So let's give the viewers and listeners of what you were actually doing in order to take care of yourself and obviously sell some of this stuff if you were trading it, selling it to other people. You said that you had chickens, and these chickens were fertilizing, right? The land. So give us an idea of what type of garden, what type of land you had, what chickens you had with these,
Standard suburban lot, 1/4 of an acre. Well, it's kind of big-ish, but I only use half of it for the garden. So it's a backyard garden, 25 feet by 60 foot. It is particularly large. I hadn't had much weed problems because I had a lot of zoning. My personal interest in permaculture kind of guided into that. And I have the chicken coop in its own little fenced-in run. Cheap fencing I bought from Amazon. And there are 2 gates, one to let the hens into the backyard to free range, and then another gate that opens into the garden, which is also fenced in. And over the course of the winter time, I let the chickens pretty much run amok in the garden area. They did all of my tilling, all of the weeding. They eat the weed seeds. I never had a problem with weeds. I never had a problem with fertilizing. I barely had to till. I really didn't have to do any work because
So
I had organized things.
basically the chickens dig the garden for you, then you just go put your plants in, and then you just grow all kinds of
Oh,
plants
absolutely.
throughout the season. Okay. All
Right.
right.
It was wonderful. I was selling extra eggs just to neighbors around the yard. It wasn't a commercial interest, but like I said, I didn't have to come up with money for food. I didn't have to come up for money for fuel,
Mm-hmm.
which are in serious impact on the cost of living, irregardless of what the Keynesians would like to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it pretty much, the yard kind of just was rolling on its own, taking care of itself. It was great.
And you see, this is one of the problems with cities and the state and the federal government. This has an impact on taxation. You know, it has an impact on direct
Oh,
taxes and indirect taxes because of the hidden costs with fuel, employing people in grocery stores and stuff like that. You know, they're not
oh
getting
yeah.
some of this money, so obviously they want to make rules and regulations to stop people. So let's carry on with this topic in a little bit. I want to go over to Dano and. What are your thoughts on the island idea?
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Um, it's interesting that you brought it up because we had that earthquake over in Pakistan, and horribly it killed a bunch of people. But on the other hand, it created a little island around the southwest of Pakistan. So I heard a lot of anarchists and voluntarists and whatnot on Facebook saying, we gotta get over there. We gotta occupy that island. And I think realistically, we'd probably run into a little problem with the Pakistani government because they're going to claim that's theirs to begin with. Uh, but yeah, absolutely. If there's any kind of vacant land anywhere, I think that's great that a bunch of people get together if they can come up with some money and uh, there's some contract negotiations going on in Honduras. I'm not sure who the gentleman is that's doing that. Jesse, you're shaking your head. Do you know the guy's name?
I don't, unfortunately. I've been in contact with some people that are looking into that, and so as soon as I get some information, I'll let everybody else know, of course.
Is this the Porcupine Village or something?
It's something similar to that. It's kind of like an offshoot type thing, but it really has a lot of good potential. I'm a big fan of Honduras. It's gotten a bad rap since the 80s, unfortunately, but if you think about it, that was all the United States doing anyhow, so
Yeah, yeah. Also with Honduras, you had Jeff Berwick putting some
yep.
good work into Chile with the Gulf Gulch project. So I'm really excited for that to get full swing, and I'd like to see a bunch of people move there. That's definitely a place that I'm eyeing as an end game to eventually move. Um, it really attracted me with the very low taxes and the less hassle to start up a business. So it seems like a little bit more freer place to move to. So it's not 100% perfect, but it's a great start to the ultimate end game, which is total freedom from government.
So Cody,
Anything
what?
like that really is a good idea.
So
I'm
Cody,
sorry, James. Go for
no,
it.
no problem. So Cody, what's your thoughts on this island deal? You think it's achievable?
How
I
about
think we
now?
might have
Can you hear
lost
me
her.
now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay.
Great, thank you. You know, I'm all for it. One thing I'm curious about with the couple that you had mentioned before, James, that are on the island already, and with future prospects, are they having to pay taxes to some government? I mean, is there a square inch on this planet that isn't, pseudo-owned by some state that claims ownership of it?
I don't think they have to pay. I don't think they have to pay taxes. It looks like that they may have like a 99-year lease.
Antarctica.
There are some people that you know you can't, like, if you're not a what's the word I'm looking for? If you're not indigenous to that area, then you have to bring somebody in that is, originally from that land. That's their rules or whatever. Um, there's, obviously there's certain things. I don't know if there is any taxes. I don't think so. I think that they work something out with some kind of tribal chief or something.
Unless you're dealing on a black market scale with other nations, though, as far as import-export would go, you'd still have duties and imports. And so, for all intents and purposes, no matter where you go on this planet, you're going to have some type of taxes. As sad as that sounds.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'm curious about too with this whole thing is I'm all for taking big measures like that and trying to gather people together, um, that are like-minded and like Gulch Gulch and that kind of thing. But it seems like we're kind of trying to create an anarchist pocket within a state. So we're still bound by all of their statiness, all of their rules and regulations and taxes and everything else. So it seems to me, I'm not sure, other than the free association that we get with each other, which is awesome, but we also kind of get that online already. So I'm trying to picture the benefit of gathering people together, and the reason I say it that way is there's kind of a cost to benefits analysis that needs to take place. For me to uproot 3 kids and a wife and close my business down and leave friends and family and move to someplace like that, that's a big cost.
Right.
Yes.
So what's the benefit that we can see in something like that?
Well, the benefit, I guess, is we hear a lot of people that have had stuff stolen from them, from the state, and, things done to them, injustices done to them from the state. And the benefit is, I guess, when people come together, they can try and stop this from happening. I'm quite sure that if 1,000 people would have showed up at Ruby Ridge with guns, right, when Ruby Ridge happened, and pointed those guns at the FBI and said, you need to get the fuck out of here, otherwise, somebody's going to get hurt, or if they would have showed up at Waco, Texas, and done the same, that something would have happened there.
I would actually agree with you, James. You make a great point in that the more people you gather together, the better possibility of defense you have against outside forces aggressing on you, etc. An island would be great, with a couple of exceptions. You'd really, really want to have, and let's make sure we mute up unless we're talking on here, guys, just so we don't have a lot of background noise. But you would want to have, you'd want to have a set defense perimeter. You would want to have things that made it not cost-effective or even beneficial in any way for the state to try to attack you. And one of those, an island would be great in that fashion, except then you would have to have people like myself who would bring in the anti-air missiles and your mines and your, all the things that you're going to need to keep the state away from something that's that big, that has that potential to cause a disruption. They're going to want to take it. And so to keep them away, you're going to have to, think past what, for instance, and I'm sure everybody at this point is well aware of the fact that I'm not a huge Porkfest or that side of the street fan. But, you have 1,000 people in one town, and they say we're not going to do this anymore. But if they just say we're not going to do this anymore and they all sign a petition, it doesn't do any good. If they say we're not going to do this anymore and all of them stand up and they hold their rifle and they say, so you guys need to back off, then people look at them and say, oh, well, yeah, you're right, because, I got 1,000 guns pointing at me. That's the thing that you got to kind of look at. And unfortunately, because we have the state and the various militaries involved with things, this is a big deal. This is something that really has to be addressed. And to the point of the island, I would that's what I would suggest as something that would go into the planning stages for a group action for an island. I would definitely suggest that people take the time and the effort to figure out what it's going to cost them to defend it, as well as to terraform it or do whatever they're going to do, planting-wise. You're definitely going to have to defend it as well.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah. Hey, Elma.
I just wanted to talk to you real quick about Sean's Outpost. They have developed a community in Florida called, I'm sorry, I just had it open, a Satoshi Forest, and what they're doing is they're allowing homeless people to come and stay on their property. It's 9 acres. And I also want to talk about this mixed together with what people are calling free cities, where they want to develop these cities that you can go to at any time and they're free, but what they're trying to do is gather all these people together and create, I guess, enough like financial reserve to buy property and then work out how they're going to run their community amongst each other. But places like Porkfest and Jackalope and all these other festivals that are happening all over the United States are pretty much just like free cities, except for they're temporary and they're smaller, and some of them do cost a lot of money to get there. But I have a goal in my future to create free temporary cities all over the place, in a free market type of aspect, like Jackalope Festival, where people can go for a week or 2 weeks, and then they know that, oh, now they can go to Texas, and there's a whole nother free city that they can stay out for the next 2 weeks, and now they can go to Missouri, and there's another free city, or, now they make it to New Hampshire, and they can go visit Porkfest, that sort of thing. So, I mean, these people, it's like, why are we waiting to gather a group of people that are like-minded enough that I want to live next to and try and buy this, like, big property to have these free cities when we can just go to national forest land right now and do it? That's all I got to say right now.
You know what? Hey, do you mind if I toss something in real quick, guys? First off, hi, Cecilia. Hi, Alma. These two are wonderful women from Arizona. Ha! Yes, we've got the best people in Arizona. I'm just going to say it like that. Okay. But seriously, though.
No, you don't.
Okay, James, you're cool too.
Because I'm not in Arizona.
Hey, move to Arizona, you'll have some fun, man. I'm just saying. But Alma has a great point, right? Alma does have a really great point, and it's something that I've been doing myself, and I know that she does it on occasion. And there's other people around Arizona, and I know there's other people around the United States that are probably doing it as well. But I've made a point to offer my house or my my hospitality if somebody needs it. While they're passing through, or if they need to stay for a couple of weeks or whatever. And I do this with people because I believe very firmly in what Alma just said. I believe that we have to be the example where we're at right now. Because I hate to say it, but I'm not rich and I haven't won the Powerball. And the last time I checked, I don't qualify for a bank bailout. So, as far as it goes, as much fun as the island would be, it really is out of my scope or of ability, and if as much fun as it would be to move to Honduras, again, that's outside of my ability at this time. It's not something that I could financially do. It's not something that I could physically do. So what do? I do everything I can right here, right now, to promote the idea that we don't need this anymore. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly, and honestly, it did make quite a bit of an impact because I had so many neighbors coming to me so regularly for years for, eggs or veg or whatever. And then suddenly to see, I'm ripping up things. I'm cutting my garden in half. Why? If there was any benefit to being hit in the face by statism, as I was, it would be the fact that I was able to reach out to my entire neighborhood and explain the ridiculousness of this overregulation, the ridiculousness of government interventionism, how much it had impacted me, how much it was hurting me financially for no good reason except arbitrary will. And if there was any benefit to that, is I now live in a community where they're all kind of very much against this level of interventionism, even those who would have previously called themselves liberal.
Good. That is a very good thing. James is having fun with his computer right now. Sorry about that, James. I'm telling you, come to Arizona, man. We have better internet too. Just saying.
I also have a property in Concho, along with a couple other liberty activists, that I'm willing to, do something similar to what Sean's Outpost is doing, where people can come and camp on my property. They can stay, they can build a wall, they can dig, they can whatever. I don't care. It's just sitting there right now, and eventually I want to build some, like solar passive homes on it, and I don't want to ask any kind of permission. I'm just going to do it, and hopefully I can work that out and get it together and get a group of people so where the plans are made, the resources are there, and the house can be built within a short amount of time. I think it would be super cool if the other people, the other activists that also have property up in Concho, maybe get on the ball and kind of plan to have their stuff ready at the same time, so we can be like boom, 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 house, house, house. And what is the county government in Concho going to do out there when 6 new houses go up, and we're all activists videotaping everything, we're free people. And I run Agorism Marketplace, and on Agorism Marketplace on the Facebook page, I say it's in Concho because I'm like trying to prepare the minds of the people there ahead of time, because it's not even incorporated as a city yet, but they have a freaking public library and an elementary school and all these things that the county has been paying for. So that's what the property taxes out there are paying for. But hopefully, there's a lot of people out there that do work for themselves because there's no like store you can go to. I'm like, there's a group on Facebook called you're from Concho, Arizona, if ... and I'm like, if you live there, or if you have land there but you don't live there, I'm like, where do you guys buy Christmas presents at, because there's nothing out in Concho. So I'm like, well, who works for themselves, and do these people accept alternative currencies? Just there's so many ways to reach out to the community, especially if you do want to go live on an island. Like I went to St. John Virgin Islands, which if I had to choose an island to live on, that would be the one. It's the most beautiful island I've ever been to in my life. And there's actually an island right next to it called Norman Island, which is privately owned by a guy and his like 3 sons that live in New York. So maybe there's an opportunity there. They have a couple bars. One's like right in the bay, one's on the beach, but nobody actually lives on the island. So there's an opportunity. Maybe someone wants to reach out to that guy.
I agree. Sorry, I got knocked off because of the internet here. But you guys, just before I got knocked off, were talking about going and occupying some federal land or something. What was the result of that? A national forest or something?
Well, we had Jackalope Festival. This was the second year we had that, and I had gone to a march against Monsanto a few months ago, and they handed out jackalope flyers. Well, somebody there is a big government lover, and they called the government literally like that day to be like, oh, look, do you know about this event that's happening up in the it's near Forest Lakes, Arizona, and they wrote an email through the Jackalope website to try and find an official person in charge or somewhere to send an official letter to. But the thing about the Jackalope Festival is nobody's in charge. It's on national forest land. There's no registration fee. There's no camping fee. There's no vending fee. I'm not in charge of you. You're in charge of you. So there's no real way for them to hunt someone down.
Right. It's kind of like a horizontal operation type of thing. Nobody's in charge. Everybody like pitches in and does the stuff, and therefore nobody's in charge.
Purely voluntary. Everybody gets together. It's a great time. Actually, James, you would have fun. Actually, everybody here on here right now would have a great time.
I hope to get out to that way to Arizona and to Teos, where the Earthship building is in New Mexico. I hope to get out that way sometime and do look at how these Earthships are being built and stuff. So yeah, Robert Kruger.
Hey, it's
how are you, sir? It's what? Taos?
Taos.
Teos.
Sorry for the lateness.
No problem.
I got trapped at work, and so I had to run out of there.
So
slave.
Yeah, except that my work is playing poker, so yeah, I'm a slave to no one.
So does anybody else have anything to say on the subject of building a stateless community type of thing, either on an island or in a forest somewhere?
If I had the opportunity, James, I would gladly be involved with something like that. Obviously, I'd want to be able to get along with the people that I'm doing it with to some degree. But I'll be honest with you, I would rather be able to take money of my own or homestead property of my own, 100, 200 acres or whatever, and then just invite people on. Because that way, as bad as this sounds, I can be the dictator of my own property. Okay, I can be the guy who says, look, as long as you follow the NAP, y'all can be here. Let's make it really simple. It's just how I roll. I don't vote, but
I think you could do that and have neighbors around you, and the neighbors that are on adjacent properties. You would have a contract with those people. You would have a contract that we're neighbors. I want to make sure that you adhere to the NAP. That type of thing. And so everybody that's immediately around you, and then they would do the same with people around them, and eventually you just get this non-aggression principle community that agrees to all that. And the agreement is that obviously if somebody comes in there, whoever it is, whether it's some goon in a costume or just some guys that are bandits trying to steal from people, that the community stands up and says, we don't tolerate this type of behavior. But I spoke about this many times, spoke with different people, one being Larkin Rose, and he loves the idea, the fact that if some people can get together, build this community, build this market, where people can come in and they can buy from the people that live there, and people can also take the services off there, and it's blogged about, videos are made about it, explaining to the world, and people that don't want to come and join but are outside and understand and they want people to do this. These are just peaceful people. They don't harm anybody. They're not looking for trouble. They just want to live their life peacefully amongst one another. They've all agreed that not one of them needs permission to build a house, a dwelling. Who is somebody to tell them, to dictate to them? It has to be to this specification. You have to use these type of materials.
Exactly.
It's their house. It's where they live, and they should be allowed to. If it's just some guy putting together some cardboard boxes, and living in that, then they should be able to do that,
No, I absolutely, I agree. Absolutely, I agree. And I mean, again, back to the point, it's not so much that, I guess the best way to put it is that over the last 3 years, 4 years, I've had the ability to meet and get to know a lot of different people, some that I get along with, some that I don't. And I found that that's just the way humans are. I mean, we all know that. But I know that with the people I get along with, I would obviously get along with them much better in a close confined, situation type of thing. So having that availability, I would, by all means, I would never tell anybody how to build their house or what to do that way. I just wouldn't want to have, I wouldn't want to have murderers. I wouldn't want to have people who vote. I wouldn't want, I mean, there's just simple things that I really wouldn't want to have there, and I'm pretty sure most people here would agree with that. So,
I agree. All right, I think Robert Kruger's up next, right? With what he was.
Well, if we're going, I'll make the whiskey.
I like him.
Well then, speaking of the making your own anarcho-capitalistic society, it turns out that, contrary to popular belief, there's actually been several, in essence, anarcho-capitalist societies. And there's a nice little series being written by Daniel Hawkins on notbeinggoverned.com. The series is called Anarchy, Never Been Tried. And we got part 1, which is about MorseNet. It was an area of land where between, let's see, it was neutral MorseNet, and there was basically a population of about 250 miners, kind of on the North Sea area, and they ended up not having a ruler for a certain period of time. and they started in about 1830, and by 1850 the population had doubled, bringing in businesses, farms, infrastructure. Between 1850 and 1860, the population quadrupled. The German Empire and Belgium didn't actually assert anything until that point. Then they started interfering and so on. In his next section, he goes on into talking about the Celts and their existence on Emerald Isle, or Island, or Eire, depending upon when you wanted to look in history. And
my island.
yeah, the polycentric law thing going on there with Brehons and so on. In part 3, he goes on into Iceland, how they also did polycentric law, and then he goes into Somalia, how prior to the modern-day Somalia, they actually did have an anarchist society there as well, with competing courts called Godhars, and I think it was called Zir, or Here, which it was formed. It was kind of a structure for kind of like a private defense contract thing, where you had an arrangement where you already had set up insurance in case something you did wrong. So, of course, ANCAPs tend to think that that might be the way things would go. Well, they did it. And let's see, later on, in the last episode of his series, he goes into, let's see here, Jericho. Not just the Bible version, but in the Jordan River, Palestine, about 11,500 years ago, we were basically nomadic, and then they made a settlement in that area. And evidence, as far as, when you're trying to find evidence of political existence, what was their politics of the time, what they'll do is they'll look for bookkeeping, or for buildings, or for caches of weapons to indicate that there was a political force in the area. And the lack of evidence in this particular case shows that there very likely wasn't any sort of political power in that area. And over the course of about 800 years, the settlement grew and continued to grow. Eventually, it was abandoned. Some say it was, destroyed by the Israelites and so on. But we're talking about a society that had no government for about 9,000 years. 9,000.
I think they dropped the nuke on them, didn't they?
I don't know if it was Jesus comes to kick your ass or what, but there was definitely something went wrong there. But yeah, for 9,000 years now, the longest lasting states, we're talking at best half that. Then there's a really hard one to pronounce. It's like Qatalhoyuk, which is in modern-day Turkey. They were also trading with Jericho back in the day. And as far as we can tell, they had about 10,000 people as a population. And it lasted for about 2,000 years, as far as they understand it. And we have Harappa, which would be modern-day in modern-day Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
It's near the Indus River Valley. There are roads, and
yeah, right.
Yeah,
And bacon.
It's actually laid out in a grid type pattern, and there's actually municipal drainage, except there's no evidence of a government. They had uniform writing systems. They had uniform weights and measurements used by traders and merchants. It was a very flourishing society. So it was about 3,000 years of lasting in an anarcho-capitalist society. So I would really recommend that you look into this series. Certainly it is not, in my opinion, a definitive source, because it has it doesn't really cite references, but it gives you a good place to start for where you can start doing some more research into other concepts and other areas about history of the anarcho-capitalist system.
You know, you can add real quick. I like to add things. Can you tell?
Absolutely.
I'm going to add something really quick to that, though. A lot of people, they don't look at our own continent, our own landmass here. Prior to the Vikings, because I'm not going to give Columbus credit for that, but prior to the Vikings, it was a nomadic society.
Yep.
So it was tribal governance. No, that's not a federal government. That's not what we know as government. It is a tribal approach, which, for all intents and purposes, is anarchy. Then you have the settlers. They come in and they do their thing, and the British and all that fun stuff happens. And then you have about 110, 120-year period that they call the Wild West. And it's important to remember that it was not a wild place, that it was actually a much there was far less crime there.
Yep.
And there was more prosperity.
Yes, great book on
exactly.
The great book on it, The Not So Wild Wild West.
Wonderful. There you go. Yeah,
Yep.
it is a great book. But it's also important to look at the some of the things that people will come up with as arguments to that. As well, what about the Indians and the and everybody was fighting all the time? Well, what people don't understand or don't care to understand is that the Indians never were a problem for the original settlers until the soldiers came in, or until the settlers came in and murdered them first.
Yep.
It was never really an issue. In fact, I'm a big fan of my own heritage, being Scottish and whatnot, but it was Scottish Highlanders that got booted off of Scotland because they said screw you to the king, and came over here. They moved into the mountains, and a lot of your big mountain men, the mountain men names are Scottish ancestry, and they continued to do things that they that they were best at, which is living away from everybody else in the mountains. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it myself. So yes, and whiskey. I enjoy whiskey.
I love to point people to the history of San Francisco, where you had private contracted police forces, private contracted fire departments, private contracted everything basically, and they did quite well, and they were the shining star of California.
Yes.
So it wasn't necessarily just because there was gold in their heels.
So, Robert, that was really...
there's another society, too, that's...
What's that?
Go ahead. I was just saying there's another society, too, that's often overlooked, and that's the Mayans and the Aztecs. They're often presented as these great big states that governed all of South America. But one reason that they were able to govern as long as they did is that they had a very hands-off approach. Even when they would conquer a smaller tribe, they would basically say, okay, you pay us homage or whatever. It was kind of a religious thing. You pay us homage, you give us some taxes, and then they would leave, and they would basically leave that tribe to do everything that they already were doing. They didn't institute state laws or state governance, really, and that's one reason that they were able to last as long as they did as well.
All right, who let this statist
Basically like a
anarchist in here?
Lisa, can I answer this? Can I answer this? How do we avoid it?
Yes.
Every time somebody says, I want to vote about something, we string them up. Self-preservation. I mean, that is the finest part of the non-aggression principle, just saying. Anyhow.
But it does violate the non-aggression principle, though.
That's true.
Well, I would say you can vote. You can vote against it, but I opt out. It doesn't apply to me, and I'm sure that the majority of people here, it doesn't apply to them either. So you're voting on your own. You're voting about your own shit. So what does it matter?
That isn't what I was asking. I guess I wasn't very clear, but there was at one point in time an island society that was developed. It was close to the Pacific Islands that were conquered in World War II, but almost as soon as they started building, they were booted off by a neighboring island state. I can look it up. It's invasion. How do you avoid invasion?
Guns.
That's my biggest problem with an island society.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Or
guns. It's guns. Basically, when
Big guns.
Larkin and I talked about this, basically building a society, you would, in the very beginning, you would pay the slave master everything that you needed to pay, because there wouldn't be enough of you. And once you'd attracted enough people that were all like-minded, there would come a time. I mean, you would put this out on the internet. You would make videos. You would blog about it. You would send information outside the community, right? That there's going to come a time when all these people in this community are just not going to pay the man anymore, right? And you would just carry on. And then the time would come, and then that would be it. It would be, look, we're not paying no more. It would be out there, we're not paying, and here's our fear. Here's what we feel is going to happen. People are going to come, and we're going to video it, and we're going to try and capture this aggression. We don't want to be paying for things that we don't have these services for. I mean, it's one of the things when I talk to people is I can't turn up at your house and paint your house, and then when you come from work and say, here's a bill for $10,000, I painted your house. Well, I never asked you to paint my house. It doesn't matter. I'm providing you a service, and you have to pay for it. And if you're not gonna pay me, I'm gonna go and lock you in my basement and rent your house out until I get the $10,000. It's not a service that is being requested anymore. So. You just make it known. I mean, we live in an information technology age, and I don't see. And Jesse's typing again, and can hear it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm trying to put that out there real quick.
And so, you have to wait until you've got the people and the information's out there to let people know. I mean.
Well, I would say, James, that realistically, if you're going to be communicating, the powers that be are going to have access to the communications that you're putting out there, and you're going to create a problem that doesn't need to have happen. Instead, you want to do something more along the lines of a Kickstarter type of thing, or like the Free State Project type of thing. But in the case of the Free State Project, maybe it would, instead of voting in legislators and so on, it would be voting in a state Congress and a state, a governor, and they would all abolish all government.
I say right off the bat, when people get onto this problem,
you're breaking up.
What is going on?
Yeah.
It's all documented, and
yes.
different people that live there have their own blogs about what they're doing. They invite people to come. You could build a hotel there, invite people to come, and they could stay in the hotel, for a couple of days for free, to see that basically this is peaceful interaction amongst the people.
You can bring more people on later.
You can bring them on right from the beginning. But what I'm saying is, you don't. What we have right now in today's society is this: we have a bunch of people that go and do activism, and they get arrested, and what ends up happening is they fall on the rest of the community to help them get bailed out. Why waste money? Why not just comply until you get the numbers?
But the point is that if you're going to set up a society like this, you're going to be setting it up, and as far as I understand your explanation, is that you're saying you're going to set it up within a region that is claimed by a state, and at some point you're going to throw off the shackles of that state, but you're going to be bringing in people with the full intent of doing that. Well, the state's going to see your message. They're going to know that this is your plan, and they're not going to like it, and they're going to do something to stop it.
But what are they going to do if you're complying right off the bat? If you're paying them their taxes, if you're complying to their building regulations and things like that, huh?
They might ban free speech. They might consider it traitorous speech, and so then they will come in and arrest you and take you off.
They'll do what they've always done. If you look around, the biggest reason that the voluntary movement, the voluntarist movement, or even the black bloc movement hasn't been assaulted as much by the feds is because, first off, the black bloc, they really have no purpose. And the feds know that, and the feds use them far more than they think they're getting used. But when it comes to the volunteer movement, like kind of what we're doing, the Agora Voluntary, there is no central anything. If they take one person, there's still 100 other thousand people out there that are doing the same thing. So, and that's our strength right now, is that there is no central leadership. There's no central guidance. And that's really the biggest strength that we have, is that we're able to continue spreading these ideals, these messages, and these approaches, simply because they can't just take us out by taking a leader out. I mean, Cody again comes up with a great point. Say what you're going to say on that, Cody.
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 You need to mute your microphone, Cody.
Hello. Sorry, can you just repeat the last thing you were just saying?
Yeah, basically, we are. You can't take out the voluntary agorist movement because there is no leader. Okay? Yeah, there's different people that some people worship or that they look at as, these higher philosophical beings. But for all intents and purposes, there is no leader. There is no set person that they could just take out and cut the head off. And they can't infiltrate it because there's nothing to infiltrate. There's no organization. And that's our strength.
Jesse, you're not running for anarchy president?
Hell to the no. I like guns.
I think
that's my platform.
I really think we're on a path too where everything is going to be less and less centralized too. I mean, when you look,
Lost you there.
Just the way everything is evolving on the internet, from Bitcoin. You're losing me?
Yep.
Am I on? Yeah, from Bitcoin, and then torrenting and the Tor network and all of this. To me, it seems like we're going to be able to stay ahead of the state as far as decentralizing communications and interactions with each other. So I do think we have that going for us. I get a little Jeffrey Tucker optimism on you.
Speaking of the state, I don't know if anybody is aware of the new big rape case that's hitting the media. The sad part is that this particular case is from January, okay, and it's all been a bunch of underground news type sources that have been putting it out there since January, and just recently, as of 6 hours ago, 8 hours ago, and a day ago on one, CNN got a hold of it. Give me 1 second here. And when my computer starts doing weird things. So in a town in Missouri, it was called, I believe, Maryville, Missouri. 11,926 people, or 62 people, something like a very small amount of people live in this town. It's a farming community, and it's in the Bible Belt. Okay. There was a girl named Daisy Coleman who was found on her front lawn. She was 13 at the time, and her mom found her on the front lawn night after she was supposedly with some friends. Daisy tells her mom that she was raped. They take her to the hospital. They do all the tests and everything that they do. They discover that, yes, she has been violently sexually assaulted. And then they turn around and they go to question the individuals who are supposedly involved. These individuals turn around and confess to everything. 3 months later, the DA turns around and says, yeah, we're going to drop this case because it's really not going to go anywhere and we don't have any evidence, and yada yada yada, and they just go off the deep end with that. And basically they leave this girl and her family in the lurch. Now the entire town turns around after the DA drops the charges. The entire town turns around and ends up booting this family out of the town. They burn their house down. I mean, it's gone from bad to worse for this family. It's just insane. And the worst part is people are still saying that, well, justice needs to be served, and justice needs to be served. We need to, justice needs to be served. But when it comes down to it, can justice really be served in a society that we currently live in? Isn't this normal for the society that we live in? Anybody?
Well, certainly we live in a realm of chaos. I mean, when you have government, you have no real law. You have the dictates of those that are in charge and in power, and whatever their whims are is what makes up reality for the rest of us, and that's entirely chaotic. It's just a personal preference for whoever it is. And as far as I understand it, the one of the people that was accused was related to influential political figure. Um,
Of course.
let's see, he's the grandson of Missouri State Representative Rex Barnett. That's right.
Yep.
The suspect rapist. So yeah, if we live in a society where there is no law, then why do we try to respect what they say is law? It's a tragedy. So I don't know exactly what Anonymous is going to be doing about this, but certainly I'm not 100% behind the Anonymous agenda. I don't know exactly what all it is and what all that is is going on there. It seems to me that they might be more like socialists, but at least they have been able to create a voice for the against the oppressive state, even if their conclusions about what should happen after that are maybe different. They're at least being successful in some of their criticisms and pointing these things out, and I salute them for bringing this forth and making it.
Well, that's what they were able to do. That's really what they're doing right now. I mean, there's nothing from behind a keyboard. There's nothing you can do to actually hurt somebody. I mean, you can splash their face across every media outlet in the world, but when it comes down to it, there's nothing you can actually do. And so, I mean, yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. But I think what irritates me more is that there are 11,000 people in this town, and not a single one of them has stood up to defend this girl against the people that have raped her. And and again, going even further than that, is that supposedly there's more girls that were raped. Now, the important thing to understand here is not so much that this one girl was raped. Yes, rape is bad. Speaking from experience as a child, being molested as a child, I can say that yes, it affects you very, very much throughout your life. And however, there's a lot of people getting raped every single day, every minute in this country. There's somebody getting raped.
It sounds like to me that some of these people that are getting raped need to carry around some real rape whistles.
Well, that's what they need to do.
I don't mean the ones. I don't mean the ones that you have a string around your neck and you blow into.
Or call 911.
Yeah.
But I mean, a 14-year-old girl.
I would say call
and a 13-year-old girl.
People. Yeah, why not? Why shouldn't a 13 or a 14-year-old girl own a gun?
I think that they should potentially, but
Robert,
we'll be called out as being crazy.
Well, and agreed. I get your point, but at the same time, my daughter is 4 years old. And guess what she knows how to do?
Shoot a gun.
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. And by the time she is 10 years old, and she's not with me every second of the day, which she is now because she's 4 years old, but by the time she's 10 years old and she's not with me every second of every day, guess what?
She's going to have a gun?
There you go. And why? Because fuck them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Plain and simple,
it all lies in education. That's what it all does. And if a child is educated from an early age and understands that this is a weapon, it's dangerous, and how to handle it, and there's a time and a place for it to come out, and they can see the actual destruction of what it does, and that all this what people see on television with guns and on video games, it's kind of nonsense. That real life education of showing people, kids especially, about guns and why kids shouldn't just take a gun and just pull it out and pretend to play with it. That's where the key is,
Right. Well, and I actually do this.
Hey, look, I said the same thing to like all the black people on my friends list, etc., who were upset about the whole Trayvon thing. I'm like, if you all are so upset about this Trayvon incident, first learn how to protect yourselves. Secondly, learn how what self-defense is, and arm yourselves. If they know, that every black person out here is armed, they're not really going to mess with black people like that because they already know that we understand how to deal with the law, et cetera, et cetera. And so, or how to deal with firearms, how to protect ourselves. And more than likely that, if we pulled out a firearm, then it was that type of situation in which we felt the need and felt heavily threatened to do so. And so, but, that aside, I already know the Trayvon situation, and I'm actually one of those black people that black people be like, yo, you really think that? I'm like, oh, if you violate the non-aggression principle, you deserve to get blown away. It's pretty fucking simple. It ain't rocket surgery. So when he was following him, he was stalking him. I'm like, whatever. You have a right to walk wherever you want to walk. It's a free world, as far as I know, for the most part. So, just if everybody's armed up, if everybody's, click-clacked up, everybody's going to respect everybody. And like when people say the Wild West really wasn't that wild. Like, everybody was armed. Everybody respect. How you doing, man? They made sure that there was no way possible that you could think that someone was being disrespectful about you. There's no way possible.
So an armed society is a polite society?
Polite society. Yeah, that's exactly it, Robert. Great.
I grew up in Gary, Indiana. I grew up in the murder capital. We were murder capital a couple years in a row when I lived there. And I'll vouch for that. Most people are of the understanding that, you be polite to people because you don't want your face blown off. And I actually think it was the police that were committing most of the murders that happened in Gary, Indiana. But that's just me.
Well, I've been to Pork Fest for the first time in June, and it was really an eye-opening experience because I've never seen so many people carrying around firearms before, especially M16s and AK-47s.
Michael, were you carrying around a firearm?
I don't own a firearm, but
why not?
Whoa!
Why not?
I'm looking into it for the state of Rhode Island, but
What?
A little bit of discomfort came over me for a split second.
That's normal.
But I very quickly got used to that, and by the first or second day, and I seen that nobody was mishandling these guns. Everyone was treating them with respect, and I actually felt a whole lot safer knowing that there was half the population at PorkFest armed and treating these weapons with respect, so that if some crazy person was to ever come onto the camp and open fire, he'd be taken out within seconds, when seconds do count when the cops are just minutes away. And the interesting thing about it was at this event there was no cops, just private security. Some people were doing drugs, some people were doing alcohol. And even with the guns involved, there was no disputes, there was no violence, there was no arguments. There was never any trouble, and that was really a really impressive thing for me. It stood out for me among other things for my first time. It was really quite the experience. And I've always been a pro-gun advocate, but it was different for me to see a bunch of people with guns that didn't have a uniform and badge.
No, you're absolutely right, Michael.
It didn't bother me at all when I went to PorkFest. I was walking around just looking at people. I never got one bit of worry, but obviously I own guns, and so I was just walking around, just looking at people. There was guys walking around with axes, machetes, all kinds of things like swords. A couple of people looked like they were, from the Middle Ages with knights and stuff. It's just funny as hell. People walking around with a bottle of beer in their hand, a gun on their hip. Who gives a crap? People just trading with one another. Different types of things. Go ahead, sorry.
If you come to Jackalope, everyone carries a gun.
Everybody
Even
does.
the Jackalopes.
Even the kids.
In the state of in Arizona, you can actually make your own guns. You're allowed to, by law, make your own guns in Arizona, and you don't have to register them or do anything like that.
By permission, you're allowed to make guns.
Yep.
And there is water here.
I'm just waiting on my 3D printer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see a
Hey,
3D printer.
Cecilia, you guys, Cecilia, this is Cecilia. She's a good friend of mine. I met her at the through the Monsanto marches out here. We've been doing a lot of work with that against the GMOs and just educating people. And Cecilia, if she has a minute, she should tell you about her experience with the Tempe's Farmers Market, letting us have a market there and not charging us, letting us vend without any filling out any paperwork or getting permission or anything like that. But I don't know if Cecilia, if she's here, she should tell you about some of her experiences.
Sure,
Are you around?
definitely. What do I do? Am I doing this the right
You're
way?
good.
Yeah, you're
I'm
good.
good? Okay. So basically, well, first of all, I do a show every Wednesday night if you guys are interested. It's on freedomizerradio.com. It's from 6 to, well, yeah, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. So, once winter hits even further, of course, it's going to change. So it'll be 7 to 10 our time, well, at least in Arizona, sorry. Um, but basically, I started doing that, and that really took me further in. I'm a musician, so that's my main goal in life is delivering positive messages through music, which brought me to the radio station, which brought me to organizing the event. One of my bandmates, old bandmates, his name is Ramon, or you guys might know him or might have heard of him as Martin Truther. But he basically asked if there was anyone who wanted to volunteer for the first March Against Monsanto, which was the one obviously May the 25th of this year. And of course, I'm like, dude, hell yeah, this is a really good opportunity. You guys need music, like I'll even bring that in. We'll bring in speakers, we'll bring in whatever else. So we ended up organizing that, and of course that and being and working with the radio station for almost a year really tied in really well. The farmers market in Tempe, Arizona itself, I mean, the people that work there, Daryl and Stacey, are a husband and wife that they own it. They are so amazing. They're very positive individuals and allowed us and have allowed us to work under their permits. So we have as many vendors as we want there, but all those vendors for that day get to work under their permit. So it's really cool. We had Alma and Freedom Phoenix there with Ernie, so it's been really grand. We've had some people from the seed markets, Rachel Linden from GMO for Arizona. Just a lot of really amazing people. I'm just thankful that the farmers market has lent their hand in that way to allow us to really flourish within the movement. One thing that we've really had a battle is separation of individuals, where someone is a little bit too caught up in what is it just about them and not remembering and focusing on the fact for that moment in time that everyone is different and that yes, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to happen. So everyone's going to come from different angles. So last March, um, well, not the one that just happened October the 12th, because that's the most recent one that we had and it was amazing. But the one before that, May 25th, and we really had to battle helping people understand that I personally don't affiliate myself with any individual group. I am my own person, and my goal on here, like I said before, is to deliver messages that are positive on this earth that is very important to our flourishing through music as well as whatever skills God has intended me to have like currently now. And every other individual that decides to come into a presence of helping, that is just such a great blessing to this earth. Now, having all these people here and knowing their differences really allows us to understand that we really have to work together. And they're like, the people up there are really trying to get us to separate from each other in a way where I come from here, well, I come from there, well, I'm in this background. Well, the beautiful thing was that we had people from all sorts of different sides that are all in one. That really broke the ice for a lot of things. So that's one piece of good news. It really allowed for whatever trolls that we had to battle the last time did not appear this time. They were barely there, if anything at all. I didn't even really notice them. But nobody said anything or was trying to bash this and that. It was quite different. So I'd say progress, if there's progress here in Arizona, then I'm sure there's similar progress everywhere else around the United States and
Except
around the
Massachusetts.
world. Except
Yeah, there was a couple that came up at the Monsanto March this weekend, and they were wearing masks. I don't know if they were anarchists or exactly what their official whatever background is. But the guy came up to me and he's like, "Are you anti-Israel?" And I'm like, like what
I
is,
am.
I'm not really sure what this has to do with anything. I'm like, are there people in Israel that aren't bad? Yeah, there's people in Israel that aren't bad. Are there? Do I like what Israel's doing to the Palestine people? No, I don't like that sort of thing. And he kept saying, well, the only way we're going to end all this stuff is if we stop supporting Israel or whatever. And I'm like, the only way we're going to end all this stuff is if we stop using the Federal Reserve note. And I talked to him about currencies for a while, and I talked to him about Bitcoin, and I talked to him about PB coin and Litecoin and some of the other ones. And after speaking with him a while about alternative currencies, you know, he stopped making that same point about how we need to stop supporting Israel, because it's not like it's not one thing or that we need to stop doing or we need to start doing. There's a lot of different things that are happening all over the world. So I think it's important for us to focus on a lot of them and educate the public and educate our families and educate our friends as much as we can with the access to the information we have.
So
yeah, definitely. You should have told him
Yes.
that he should know the difference between Israel the place and Israel the government. I mean, Israel is just a place. So when they say, well, do you support Israel? Well, Israel is just a piece of dirt in a geographical location. It would have made a whole lot more sense if he just said, do you support the Israel government? In which that case, I'd assume you would say, well, I don't support any government. But the people that live on that geographical area are just people like us who are just trying to get through every day and live the best that they can. And there's bad people, there's good people, just in this place of the world over here. So people just need to get rid of that collectivist mindset, because it does nothing but divide us. And so yeah, that's my 2 cents on that issue.
So I wanted to go back to a subject that was brought up previously about the Monsanto thing. And the thing I really find that a lot of voluntarists get frustrated with is that we all know that Monsanto and GMO foods, they really can screw up an environment. They can screw with seeds for future crops for all time, and this is where we start to run into potential dependence upon them for food and so on. Now, I understand that their intents are good to put an end to this abuse by banning Monsanto or banning GMO or requiring labels for GMOs. But this is exactly what government does, is it subverts what it is that you value. It takes your concern and says, oh, I can take care of that. Just let me go ahead and pull out my guns and force people to do whatever it is that will appease you and get your vote. Instead of seeking to have Monsanto foods or GMOs be required to be labeled or prohibited, I would like to see people try to get government to remove the corporate protection that they give to companies, to allow lawsuits to be filed by property owners who have crops that have been manipulated by GMOs, to sue the crap out of these people and take their homes and put them in poverty, and then that will make them stop. When we can get rid of the government protections for these corporate interests, that's when we can actually put an end to it. Right now, government is always going to be bought by the lobbyists because it has power. If there is no power there, then there's no ability for Monsanto to buy it. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
That's one of the big things that.
Go on.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
No, you're up. You
Okay,
look better on
I just
TV
wanted
anyhow.
to say that's one of the biggest things there is, did you sign the petition? Did you sign the petition to force the government to, or to use the government to force companies to label non-GMO or whatever? And every time I talk to anyone at these festivals or at these events about that, I state my idea about that. I don't support using the government to force companies to label. I support the market deciding by voluntarily, not choosing to use these, to eat the food that's poisoned with Monsanto, and instead of using the government to force just to choose not to eat that food because it's not labeled, and then you naturally encourage companies to label because people will just stop eating it if it's not labeled, and they just stare at me blankly like it's beyond their thought process that I would ever think the market would naturally decide that for itself. That it's almost like they don't believe the market could do something like that. That we have to use government to force companies to do this, and that ideal is just silly.
I think it's more. It's
this
not
is
that
really
they
easy
don't
to
believe
see.
that that's possible. Look at the people who are in charge of government. Okay, pick one congressman or senator that you know of, and give me a name, and I will give you a business that their family owns. That is heavily involved with another business that is a part of the bigger business. You see, the thing is whether we like it or exactly, it's global business, and what it really comes down to is, and constitutionalists hate this when I bring this up to them, but if you take the Constitution and you put it up against the Charter of England, and you do line for line for line for line all the way down to the very bottom, you're going to see something. It's going to pop out to you now, of course, because you're not looking at the Constitution and saying, "Oh my God, I worship you, O Constitution." But it'll pop out at you, and there is no difference between the two documents outside of the language that's used. Okay, instead of king, you have president. Okay, instead of Congress, you have, So basically, government is government is government. The whole point of government is to give certain people better abilities to consolidate their power and or money over other people. That's the entire point of government. There's no other reason for government to exist. However, to ensure that all the other individuals, because humans are individuals, no matter how much indoctrination we get, we're still going to have thoughts that just spring into our head without anybody else telling us to think them. And so because of that, the government has to continue to put things out that say things like, we're protecting you from the terrorists, and authorita, and all the different things that they're going to say. But when it comes down to it, especially with like the Monsanto thing, it's not going to do us any damn good to sign a petition or to vote or any of that kind of shit. What's done is done is done, and it's going to continue to happen that way. The only way you're going to end it is to either burn every single Monsanto company to the ground, and you can take that literally if you'd like, but I prefer that we, keep that in a figurative manner because I don't want to go to prison tonight. And then the other approach is to do the same thing with every government out there. The only way you're going to end this problem, to keep it from ever happening again, to keep it from ever being an issue again, is for government to go away overnight, right away. Or we get an island, we have 100,000 people move to this island, we have really great air defenses, we have really great sea defenses, and we blow the hell out of everybody that comes near the island until people finally say, okay, we're not going to screw with you anymore, and then we use all the mines that are on the island, and we go to a different planet. Because that's what it comes down to right now. We're kind of screwed. Yeah, right. Hi NSA. Hi NSA. Yeah. But seriously, I think we're kind of screwed when it comes to that, and that there is no options that we have outside of, there's no viable option. Signing a petition does nothing. People say, well, it raises awareness. Well, I disagree, because if you look at petition.com, how many goddamn petitions are on petition.com started today? Not to mention the millions that are already on there. You know, I mean, it doesn't raise anything. All it does is convolute the issue even more, and people are not getting it. They're not understanding it. So what do? We bring it back to our community, and we share with our neighbors, and we share with the people that we know. You know, I teach Karen how to build his own firearm. So he lives in Massachusetts. Who gives a shit? Here, this is what you got to do to build the firearm that you need to defend your family. You know, go do it. And tell that to everybody. You teach the other people how to do the things that they need to do. So let's say Michael doesn't know how to grow a garden, okay? And hypothetically, hopefully he does. But you know, he doesn't know how to grow a garden. So then we take Alma, and I say, Alma, go show him how to grow a garden. And she shows you how to grow a garden. You see where I'm going with that, though, right? I mean,
It
the
goes
thing
back
is
to the old adage, teach a man to fish.
There you go. There you
Teach a
go.
man to fish, and you know, love food for the rest of his life. Just give a man a fish, and he'll live for.
Vote for you.
You know, vote for you. Yeah.
Well, the most important thing that I think you need to teach is how to network. Specialization of labor is too important to give up. Trying to make your own guns and make your own farms and make your own this and that. It's far more important that you can make your own communities that can share and specialize in labor and you know, take advantage of the person who really knows how to make great farming, the person who really knows how to make great websites. You know, every single person being able to do their own particular thing that really benefits other people. You know, exactly what we want to see in a free market. So agorist type communities are really, you know, the thing that I'm in favor of. Not necessarily, you know, making your own farms. I understand that that's a big thing that a lot of you are into, is, you know, growing your own food. But I play poker. Sorry, that's what I do. And so I just want to have a bunch of people being really wealthy, so that they could want to have some free time and want to, you know, test their skills against me when it comes to playing poker. That's what I want to see. So the more people who are
That would be fun.
wealthy, yeah, I want to see lots and lots of wealthy people who are not dependent on government, who have no government involvement whatsoever, who want to come out to the casino. But you know, if you wanted to look into,
Hey, Robert, were
Yeah.
you
go ahead.
Oh, we lost her.
We lost her. One thing that I would really recommend that you possibly look into is it's a video that was made by Hernando de Soto. It's available at freetochoose.tv. You're looking for The Power of the Poor, also Globalization at the Crossroads. I'll go ahead and throw in a link into the chat here. This guy goes through and he talks with people who are doing the agorist thing. He calls it the gray market. I call it agorism, or the black market. This is in Chile and Peru, actually in Peru. Sorry, in Peru and other places in Africa, where he sees that there are people who basically have said, we're going to step outside of the state, and we're going to create our own titling companies, and we're going to borrow against title for our land in order to make a business and to buy ingredients for our restaurant, or to do all these different things that they're going to do, and it's been very successful. So I highly recommend that. The Power of the Poor was the one that really was great for me, but Globalization at the Crossroads is also very, very impressive.
Yeah, good stuff. We got about a half hour left in the show, so there's one topic I've been dying to touch on, and that's been the protests that just recently happened in D.C., where a bunch of truckers drove down and clogged up the highways, and it resulted in about 5,000 people showing up in D.C. and waving their flags and it resulted in them grabbing the barricades used by government to close down the memorials, and they walked it down the road and they piled them up in front of the White House gates like the anarchist criminals that they are. And the cops showed up with their riot gear and on their horses, and nothing was really done on their part because, of course, they're outnumbered. Only one person was arrested, and I thought that was just absolutely fabulous that they just outright ignored the commands of the politicians. Uh, they closed off a park in D.C., and a bunch of people just moved the gates and went in, and they strolled through the parks like they weren't even there.
You know
And
what makes me, laugh at all these protests where a shitload of people show up and they go to Washington D.C. It all happens at the weekend. Now, I'm not all for protesting, right? I mean, I used to be, but I now see I see a sign on it where people can go and they can educate others. It gives people a platform, right? It gives people the platform to go pass out information about different things. But to go and at the weekend where I mean, what is it achieving on a Saturday or a Sunday? If you're going to protest the government, these people aren't there. They're in their homes around the pool, smoking cigars and drinking whiskey and having a good time. It is doing nothing. It's not sending a message. Yeah, you've got the clowns in their clown suits and their badges and their Batman belts with their torture devices and things like that have been put there to stop these people walking around and protesting. But realistically, at the weekend, it does nothing. So you had these truckers that spent all this fuel that drove there at the weekend. You had all these people that wasted all this fuel and drove there this weekend. If you really want to shut things down in that type of manner, do what the French or the British did, where they get in their cars and they just drive slowly along the interstate, and it stops. It causes the backup of traffic, around a major city.
What about a freeway sine wave during rush hour traffic?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get a message out, that's a great idea. But if you really want to draw attention to something, the best way to do it, I think, is in 2000. What happened was in England they raised the price of gasoline by like 10, 15 cents. They put a tax on it. So what did a group of people do? They started driving. They're called motorways in England. Here they're called interstates. They got in their cars. They formed a line and they did half the speed limit, driving one way. And there was lines and lines of traffic. Somebody's got their microphone and speakers open. I think it's Cody. It's echoing. Okay, and they just back up, and then they went to the oil refineries, and they went and stood out there, and they asked the drivers of the oil refineries not to deliver gasoline to the gas stations. Within 2 weeks, the British government called the organizers of this, to a meeting, and then it was over. What happened? It created problems because companies that deliver goods to stores and stuff, they have a contract that if the goods aren't delivered on a certain time, by a certain date and certain time, they're going to get sued. Then there was the fact that people weren't showing up for work, so therefore in England, it's not like it is here in the United States where you file your taxes at the end of the year. They have what's called PAYE, pay as you earn. They take the taxes out of your wages at the end of the week, so the government gets money off you every week, unless you pay bi-weekly or monthly. And so people weren't being able to go to work. They weren't spending, they weren't putting gas in their car, which is 84. I think it's about 84 pence in every pound is taxes. So it was hurting the government in their pocketbook, right? So they called these people in, and then they said, okay, we'll drop the tax back down to what it was, and they did. Okay. So the protest, yes, it did cause a disruption in the beginning, And that's what the French do. When the French get pissed, they go and drive their trucks to the docks, so goods can't get on ferries, can't go to different continents, things like that. If you want to protest and you want to do a protest and show some real civil disobedience, you do it during the week. You don't do it at the weekend when there's nobody around. And what's the point of protesting anyway?
I agree
So
with
to
you.
help
I agree with you. What is the point of protesting? That's why,
Well, there's
I,
there's
I
no
go
point
by
in.
sort of the
Go ahead.
credo of grow testing. I mean, again, I'd rather have a head of lettuce than a bust head. At the end of the day, what is them driving around a car for hours and hours and hours going to do? They could have taken all of that fuel that they burn moving that car from point A to point B, thrown that fuel into a, say, diesel engine, planted a whole bunch of shit, moved some land around, terraformed, uh, created a permacultural farm, not terraform, but created a permacultural farm, and and grown a lot of food for a lot of people with their time, their effort, the gasoline, their money that they burn just riding around the city in slow motion. I mean, come on, like people aren't really thinking about sort of a multi-stacking of sort of functions here as far as like liberation is concerned. And it's fucking sad to me that people are riding around in their cars like, oh yeah, this is gonna do something in the short term. But yeah, ultimately they're gonna come back around and do whatever it is that they wanted to do in the first place because they have the guns. And then also too, they've desensitized you to this shit because it's like, oh, they did it before, and this time it's gonna stick. Like, fuck that. Grow some food. If everybody's like, oh, I know this report is due, but I mean, the apples are fucking falling off the tree. I gotta can them. I gotta get them ready for winter because they're ready. Like, I've been waiting all year. The Honeycrisps are right. Like, they're not gonna go to work. Fuck work. Fuck a job. In that sense. And so, it boggles my mind that people are still actually out protesting for what?
Yeah, I agree. I think
Rock and Rose says that if he was a tyrant, that he would organize a anti-me protest every day. I have a
yeah,
video.
I
I have
think
a video of him down on my YouTube channel. You should watch it. It's funny.
I think the whole truck thing was. I got to agree with Kai. I think it was a little ridiculous. Uh, but the thing I loved about the whole thing where they were taking the barricades and they were walking them down the street and they were just opening up the barricades and going into the parks is because they did exactly what they should have done as free human beings, which is just ignore them. Just ignore the authority. They have no legitimate authority over anybody, and that's really how you're supposed to act as a free human being. But if people see a barricade with a stupid sign on it that says, "Oh, this memorial's closed," "Oh, well, I guess it's closed. Sorry, kids, let's go home." Well, then guess what? They lose, and the authority wins.
This memorial's closed. Says who? Who owns?
All right.
Exactly.
Who
Let's
owns
give
it?
let's give Alma a chance to tell us what she does, real quick, and she can kind of go into detail about what she does with the Agris Marketplace, because that is a big thing. I have gotten a lot from her and the things that she's done, and I've implemented a lot of that, and I appreciate that. So let's let her tell us about that real quick too.
All right, hi guys. I started Agorism Marketplace about a year ago, and so far we have over 100 Agris on agorismarketplace.com. There's a Facebook page and a group that you can get connected with people. We have, I think there's over like 500 people in the group or something like that, or maybe it's 300, I can't remember right now, but there's a lot, and you can advertise whatever it is that your product or service is, and if you have specials going on and what your alternative currency you're accepting. I quit my full-time slave job in January, actually I guess December, and so since January I've been free. I do a few different things. I work on Agorism Marketplace. I work on the Jackalope Freedom Festival. I also work for Ernest Hancock with doing his social networking. And if you aren't familiar with Ernest Hancock, he has a show called Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock, and that's on Monday through Friday 3 hours a day in the morning early. So you can check him out, and he's doing a lot of stuff with his farm and building aquaponics and things like that. What else? I'm trying to think what else is important to tell you. It's free to get connected.
Jackalope.
Oh yeah, Jackalope Festival. I mean, I already mentioned it. It's free. What else do you guys need to know? If you need to raise money to go, and you want to speak or you want to host some kind of event, if Robert wants to have some kind of, Texas Hold'em, whatever, I'm a big fan, and I'm sure you'll get a bunch of people that want to play. I know that Porkfest, they have card games and things that go on, so that's super fun, and it would be awesome to get stuff like that going on at Jackalope. Really, the more people that come and decide to organize an event, the more exciting it's going to be. I would have to say that the first year we did it was probably more organized than the second year. We had speakers and different events that went on. We have a jackalope hunt for the kids every year, and whoever wins the jackalope hunt gets the win or gets a real rabbit that they can either keep as a pet or they can eat it, whichever one they want. I wanted to tell you guys real quick also that there's a group of girls getting together, Ladies of Cot Block, and they're going to be issuing a calendar at the beginning of the year. They're going to be doing a Kickstarter campaign, and the video's already been created, and the girls are getting their pictures taken, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit before this episode is over. So I wanted to share that with you guys so you can make sure you keep that in mind and get your Ladies of Cot Block calendar.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Does anyone have any questions about Agorism Marketplace? Because, I mean, I'll answer whatever questions you got.
What products do you typically see?
Everything.
Anything. Everything. You guys familiar with Star Child?
With what?
Star Child was one of my very first agorists to get listed on Agorism Marketplace.
He's a male gigolo.
When you say everything, I mean...
Everything.
I like...
Well, see, the thing is whatever a product or service that you provide, you put as much information on the website as you want. And you can even add a video about whatever it is that you're doing. There's so many options that come with it that people don't always take advantage of, but they can. I mean, even putting a video on there to tell people what you do, or if you sell some kind of product and you're like, oh, sweet, here's my solar panel and here's a video of it, and I'm going to take Bitcoin. Bring it.
Does it cost anything to advertise on the marketplace?
It's completely free to have a connection on the website. You can purchase separate advertising from me if you want advertisement on the side of the website.
Is it anonymous?
It
No.
says you put as much information on there as you want, but you don't have to log in. There's no registration that you have to fill out each time or password or anything like that. It's just a one-time thing.
Well, I'm wanting to compare it with Silk Road.
Okay.
If you're going to compare it to something on the darknet, you're talking. This is the closest thing to, say.
The conference call.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the closest thing to one of the darknet marketplaces that you're going to get on the light side of everything. And again, you put what you want on there as far as contact information goes. So, for instance, you can put what you offer and a drawn picture and then an email address, and then they can email you, and then you send them back with a public key, and you go from there. I mean, there's all sorts of approaches to doing that kind of thing. And a lot of people take advantage of it, and I've actually seen or used it quite frequently with various individuals that I've discovered on there. No, Kai, and not the penis. I'm good as far as that goes. But but that is available.
I know. I need some ladies on there. I got male loving. I need some lady loving. And Star Child is bisexual, so it is lady or male loving, I guess. But I know there's got to be some ladies out there that have some kind of product or service that they're offering for alternative currencies.
Exactly.
When you do
it really
business,
is a good idea.
when you do business with someone or you find, a product or service that you're looking for on Agorist Marketplace, you connect the person, you contact the person by whatever means they they made available to you, and then business is done on a individual to individual basis. So if you don't feel comfortable selling your product or service to an individual, then you don't. And you will communicate with them beforehand before any transactions go through.
Exactly. So, but that's that. We've got, what, 15 minutes left, Mike?
Yeah, about 15 minutes.
All right. So you're up.
Sure. Well, the last topic is the U.S. Default, supposedly on Thursday, and the slave masters have been together twiddling their thumbs and doing whatever it is they do to supposedly stop a worldwide economic catastrophe, supposedly. So does anybody have any information, any comments, concerns?
I can only hope that they all have heart attacks and don't come back to business.
It's the end of the world as we know it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
When
Hey,
they
REM had a
default
song
on
about
this?
that, right?
And I feel fine.
Hasn't the world been ending since like the beginning of time?
So
I do want to say really quick, Robert, and then I'll let you go. I do want to say really quick, though, it's nice to have females on the round table.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, you guys are hot dudes, but it is so nice to have females on the round table.
Especially James, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, the only thing about the financial collapse of the debt ceiling being raised, or without permission or whatever, the people that keep track of our debt, about, I think it's like 10, 11 months ago, reached a number that was just below the limit. And they said that, well, that's where the number was. Oh, that's right. It was like 10, 12, it's like 15 weeks straight or something like that. About 15 weeks straight, where they had the same number. It's been the same number every single day for 15 weeks. So, yeah, I think they kind of already passed it. They just, they're using their paperwork to give us some numbers that some people in the media want to hear. But political expediency of when the default is going to happen is going to make it happen. It's already happened. We've already passed it. Of course, we already have seen some of the credit rating agencies come along and say these are negative numbers, that if you're holding any debt that bears U.S. currency, that you should probably get out, things of that nature. But realistically, it still doesn't matter as long as we have the war machine propping up the petrodollar.
Yep. Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
I'm just living my life like government ended and that it's a past story. Now we move forward towards all of our solutions that we've been talking about for years.
I agree.
It'd be great. It'd be great if, somehow, some way we can use this platform, we can use this forum, if we can, tap into these networks that we are forging, that we are creating, to create exactly what it is we're talking about, creating a community, creating a system in which anarchist ideas, agorist ideas, philosophy, ideology can work in a way that shows people that, hey, look, not only is this stuff possible, but you can do it too, and it's very accessible to you as well, and create a situation in which it's replicable, it's highly replicable, and make it sort of be able to be put into the hands of everyday people, sort of on some guerrilla life fair anarchism type shit, as my people often say, and make it so that it's just a thing that catches on, and that we have to be cognizant and aware of sort of a status infiltration, like the COINTELPRO. I know that some of you may know about it. I know a lot of you do know about COINTELPRO, and the damages that it did to sort of the political movements of black people in this country, of Latino people in this country that were fighting for sort of their rights, whatever the fuck rights are, in this sort of plantation that we live on. And
I'm fighting for Scottish rights.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? And I'm fighting with you for Scottish rights. Shit, my name is Kieran Pearson. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably more Scottish than you are. So I mean, don't let the tan fool you. That's it.
The tans.
But you know, really, I mean, I feel like we should really be using this forum, aside from this, to really try to create something in which we can be a shining example of people to what they can do and what's achievable and what's possible.
I totally agree, Kai, because there are people out there, everybody that I talk to, they're looking for solutions. You know, there's people out there that just can't stand what's going on. And, you know, when there are no solutions offered to them, and I try to explain to them, listen, your solutions in your community, not somebody that lives 200 miles away, not somebody that lives 4,000 miles away. Your solutions in your community bring your people together and doing things and providing for yourself. And people say, well, who's doing this? Where's it happening? And I try to point them in certain directions. And the people want to see, the majority of people, they want to see something happening. They want to see communities doing this. Show me this and I'll believe it type of thing. So I think it's time that something did start to come of talking, and that's great. I love talking about solutions to problems. There are people out there doing stuff, and the more people that get together and do that, I think that's the way.
Hey, I do want to make an offer really quick because there were people talking earlier. We were talking about firearms and kids and all this kind of stuff. Those of you who have children and you have not had the chance to work with them with firearms, or you live in a communist state and they don't allow you to look at firearms or to make paper ones, by all means, I will come to wherever you live, and I will work with you, work with your kids. It's something that I do, and I offer that free of charge to Liberty people.
What are you talking about? Paper? What are you talking about? Paper ones? Some states you're not even allowed to do this.
I was just gonna say that. This is
doing
that. You're not even allowed to do this.
They're expelling kids for doing it. Like 5-year-old kids.
Stick them up, buddy. Stick them up.
Well, I gotta say, guys, this has been a really great roundtable. You know, does anybody have anything that they want to say before we start looking at going over, you know, all the different things that we got to go over? Like, you know, what everybody does and all that kind of stuff.
Jesse, I've got a great picture I want to share with you of my 9-year-old shooting a Mosin Nagant. I think you'd appreciate it.
Yes, I probably would. Nice, good man.
Well, you know, I was going to say that there was a group of us who hadn't gone in and said sort of how we became anarchists and finished the story of our journey to anarchism, thanks to James and his explanation of how he became an anarchist.
Yeah.
From, I guess, 2 weeks ago. I don't know if...
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
Last week's show, did everyone else finish, or...
No, we kind of lost track of that. I think you were the only one that really didn't have a chance to finish, so why don't you go ahead and you know, tell us about your coming to your insight.
Well, first off, I was born black in America, so that sort of helped me leapfrog past a lot of shit as far as like really understanding that the state really isn't your friend, and that the police really aren't your friend. So I didn't have to go far as understanding that. I think that understanding that element and then coming through sort of this political education that I got in high school. I moved from Indiana to Cambridge, Massachusetts. And in Cambridge, I met with this lady who like stopped me one day in school and asked me to join this group. And we talked about politics. We talked about understanding of sort of oppression, et cetera, et cetera. So it gave me sort of one lens to look at it. Now, albeit it was quite liberal, to say the least. So on one hand, government's the problem, but on the other hand, government can solve the problem. And and so, I grew up and had sort of been uh, brainwashed or brainwashed into that sort of philosophy that if we get the right candidate in, and it'll all work. So college, I go to college. I went to an all black male college. Wow, a lot of statists, a lot of statists, and a lot of statists. All of them. I doubt that there was a single anarchist there. I mean, I at the time wasn't even an anarchist. I was an atheist at a Christian black male college. So
you're already screwed.
yeah, you know what I'm saying. People looked at me like I had 5 heads, an albino 5-headed monster. Yeah. So just because I didn't praise white Jesus, it blew their mind. Anyway. So after coming through that, I come back here to Massachusetts, and I'm here, and I'm looking around, I'm seeing that things, that I've been told, this reality of how things are. You go to school, you get this, you get that, and you're fine, and it wasn't adding up. And I had this really bad back injury, and because I had the back injury, I think most people have to experience some serious trauma in order for them to really understand what's really, really, really going on out here. Because you have to take time off to really decompress and really not be in it. And when you're not in it, that trauma allows you to really reflect and see what's going on. And I had plenty of time to do a lot of reflecting, a lot of thinking on my life, how I ended up where I was, the history behind it. How my people got here, and et cetera, et cetera. And
any particular sources that you would recommend that came to you that you said, wow, this is a great source and helped you understand?
I would say reading about sort of Frederick Douglass, reading about Harriet Tubman, reading some of Howard Zinn's work, War. Reading some Noam Chomsky will sort of put you ahead of the learning curve as far as not being a statist anymore. Thoreau was a really big influence on me, and just a lot of science education. If you get plenty of science education, you learn the scientific method and you can apply it not only to sort of scientific things, but also to politics and life, etc. And so, that really was a huge thing. I watched so much Discovery Channel growing up; it was ridiculous. So, for a little country boy in Indiana, Discovery Channel was sort of it was my Bible. So that's what I studied by. So, just learning science.
We've got 2 minutes left.
We got 2 minutes left. Thanks, James.
So let's kind of wrap it up there.
The nerve.
I know Michael Daniels probably got some things to wrap us up real quick, but I do want to invite the ladies that have joined us and anyone else that has joined us. Michael, in fact, maybe we can see if there's a trend that all the Michaels seem to follow, just because we've got so many Michaels in the participation group. But yes, ladies and gentlemen that have joined us, Cody, let us know how it is that you came to Liberty, and certainly thank you for joining. Michael, you had some things you wanted to say before we ended?
Yeah, sure. Well, I just want to first off thank the gentlemen and the ladies. You guys were excellent guests, and had some really good discussions. And that's about it. Yeah, please. Yeah, definitely. Please come back. Tell your family, tell your friends to view us. We are on air every Tuesday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
And as Mike Shanklin would wrap it up, don't forget to check out voluntaryvirtues.com and also voluntaryvirtues0.com on YouTube. And you can also visit peacefreedomprosperity.com. All Mike's work is on there also. So I think we're about wrapped up, aren't we?
Yep. Y'all have a great night. Again, thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next week.
Peace. It's been a great time, yeah. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Good night, guys.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Good night.